Let's get started. Let me open up my agenda here and we'll do a head count. Share. Oh, that's not what I wanted to share. How do I get rid of that? I don't want to do that. What does that do? Hold on, my apologies here. I am sharing, but I can't see what I need to see now. How do I minimize? This was not a problem last time. That's not it. Pause share. Okay, okay, how do I do this? This is what I need to pop up. All right, let's try this again. This is what I need. Okay. All right, can everybody see our agenda here? All right. I think that was mostly, pardon me, I need to close the door here. We're all in the meeting together, Pete, my family, your family, everybody's here together in the meeting. It's good stuff. I can't wait to get back to in-person meetings. All right, so absences tonight. Eric Brown is an excused absence. He got a hold of me to let me know he could not make it. Wayne Bond will be, I think, a half hour, 45 minutes late. Nicole Olween will not be able to make it. She had something come up at the last minute. Hey, there's Joe. How's it going, Joe? Nice to see you. Ian's here, Sharon's here. Yeah, good to see you. Gail emailed and said that she would not be able to make it tonight. And if we have Dr. Mellywish join us, oh, there's Wayne. Hey, Wayne, how's it going, man?
Good. Glad I was able to make it on time.
Yeah, me too. So we do have a quorum, so we can go ahead and get started here. And I can see that we are recording on Zoom and live streaming. So any questions or comments on today's agenda?
Looks packed as usual.
Erin, this is Jean Hess. The sustainability plan isn't going to be presented, that you're just going to give an update?
Correct. It's just going to, I'm just going to say a few words about it.
Okay, thank you.
Bit, but it was already on there, so.
Okay.
All right, is there a motion to approve the agenda?
I motion.
And a second.
Support.
All in favor, give me a thumbs up. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. All right, the agenda is approved. I did send everybody a draft of the October minutes, so you'll get a chance to take a look at those and send any corrections via email to me, and I'll send those on to city staff. But do I have a motion to approve the September meeting minutes? I did not hear from anybody else with any other corrections. Is there a motion to approve the September meeting minutes?
I motion.
I'll second.
And all in favor, ready to give me a thumbs up. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. All right, September meeting minutes are approved. Announcements. What's going on in the world of environmental concerns here with our committee members?
I got a tiny one. On Saturday, it'll be more relevant once you give the update, Erin, but on Saturday, I'll be volunteering at the farmers market to help begin the education campaign for the sustainability plan. If anybody wants to come say hello, 10 to noon. And we might be looking for future volunteers for that. So happy to help connect if you're available.
I won't be able to make it in the next month, but can you keep me posted for next year?
Sure.
Thank you.
Anybody else? Any other announcements? All right. Hearing none. Let's go ahead and move on to citizen comments. I know we've got a handful of phone messages for the committee tonight. So let's go ahead and listen patiently to those right now.
Okay, I'll get those queued up for you. And Aaron, could you stop your screen share so I can share audio, please?
Yep.
Thank you.
Thanks, Don.
Yep.
Cheryl Berea, B as in boy, A-R-E-A. I live in the Winchell neighborhood on Sycamore Lane in Kalamazoo. I'm calling regarding the proposed deer call, and I am against this. This should not be an option in a deer management plan. There are other methods that are ethical, humane, and do not harm any wildlife. I also think we need to request and see all of the raw deer survey data and numbers, and not just a summary report, because we need to make sure this is transparent. And I live in the city. I am very much against this. I think we need to create more green spaces for wildlife. We have removed their homes and places they can live, which is why they are more in the city. This is not a solution. This will not work. It's violent. I am completely against it. There are other ways that we can humanely control and regulate the deer population. Please do not do this. I am completely against it. Thank you for your consideration.
I appreciate this opportunity. My name is Tom Duffield. I live in the township, and I just want to make it very clearly, please, please, no deer kill call. I'd like to really see the raw data that you've come up with. And the reason for no deer call is it just doesn't make any sense to kill another being for the sake of, I guess, discomfort and convenience of others. So just treat all beings equally and do not eliminate or kill another one for the sake of a garden or flowers or whatever the other reasons are. Thanks a lot for listening to me. I appreciate this a lot. Bye-bye.
My name is Rebecca Silence. I'm a homeowner in the city of Kalamazoo, and I'm opposed to culling as a means of controlling the deer population. When you examine the results of what other communities have done, the facts clearly underline the failures of culling. The numbers of deer increase, the health of the remaining deer population can decline, and cities find themselves trapped in an endless cycle of spending thousands of dollars every year continuing to kill deer. Here's a quote from wildlife biologist Dr. Alan Rutberg. The most visible weakness in the assertion that culling is necessary to control deer population is that it has largely failed to do so over the last 2 decades. With no benefit of controlling the deer population, a cull simply becomes an unnecessary and inhumane practice, and one that divides and angers the community. Yesterday, I emailed the ECC chair, Aaron Wright, and I hope that email was forwarded to other members of the committee. I'm asking the committee to work with the community to look for progressive methods of managing wildlife. We need to put our resources toward methods that work and not waste them on those that have proven to fail. Thank you.
Hello, my name is Chelsea Zanker. I live in the city of Kalamazoo, and I would like to voice my opinion in opposition to the deer cull management plan. I would also like to request to see all of the data from the surveys and the numbers, and not just a summary of the report. I'm opposed to this because I don't believe that it is a serious long-term solution, and it is also inhumane. Thank you.
Hi, this is Tom Kopinski. I'm a resident of the city of Kalamazoo. I am calling to say that I am strongly opposed to killing deer to control their populations. I think it's been shown over and over again to be a rather ineffective method of controlling deer populations. I would prefer a more well thought out plan involving contraception should deer populations need to be controlled. I'm also very concerned about what is essentially establishing a hunting season within city limits. I think there are certain risks involved with that. Even if professionals are doing the hunting, it's still hunting and it's still firearms within city limits. I also think that because it is firearms, that it's going to make it much more divisive in our community as to how to manage deer populations going forward. I think contraception would be a much better path forward and much less divisive in the community. Another concern I have is that how the deer survey was conducted, how the data was handled. It seems to me to be somewhat behind closed doors and not open to public viewing and public discussion as much as it should be. I will be listening to the meeting today to see what's going on there, but I definitely have concerns about how the data is being managed privately. Thank you very much.
Good afternoon, Environmental Concerns Committee. I hope that you can hear me. My name is Iris Potter, and I live at 1204 Manor Street. I am calling in for the formal record regarding the deer survey agenda item tonight. I have phoned in prior and will continue to voice my strong opposition to a deer cull option in a new deer management plan. Deer culls are inhumane. They don't reduce the number of deer, plus there is plenty of information available about how to live with and also how to deter them from yards or gardens. Most importantly, we should view this issue in a holistic way and see that we shouldn't blame the deer for being here and want to kill them with sharpshooters in parks. They have been here and will always be around us. Let us practice what is called compassionate conservation. City money should be spent on our residents' real needs instead of a deer cull. Also, when the deer survey results are presented to you tonight, I sincerely hope that the raw data numbers are shown, not just a report summary received. I would like to learn during this meeting if that information will be available to the public for full transparency. So I ask you to take a minute with me again to visualize a large pile of deer food or bait placed in, let's say, Quinstruck Preserve, for example, then hired sharpshooters waiting to kill the unsuspecting feeding deer at close range. Does this make us feel good and safe? Not me nor many others. Preserves and parks are for all of nature. This is not how I want our city to be known, spending thousands of dollars for something so extreme and cruel. We need to learn to coexist with our environment, including deer. These beautiful animals are victims of overdevelopment of habitats, for one. I know that you will take citizens' input into consideration. Thank you. Have a good evening.
So, my name is Michael Bishak, and I am a resident of the city of Kalamazoo. I'd like to state that I'm opposed to a deer cult management plan. I would also like for the survey data to be made public rather than just a summary. I'm opposed to a deer cult management plan, and I am in favor of a more humane approach. Thank you. So,
All right, that is the public comments at this time.
All right. Thanks everybody for taking the time to call in and share your views. The Environmental Concerns Committee. We appreciate everybody's input. We certainly are listening. I've also received quite a few emails on this topic. a handful of emails opposed to a deer call, a handful of emails in favor of a deer management plan. So it's definitely a hot topic in the community right now, and there's definitely a variety of opinion. So let's go ahead and get into our agenda items here. We were hoping to have Jamie McCarthy come and speak to us about the Sustainability and Climate Action Plan update, but of course we would rather have things done well as opposed to just having them done quickly. So one more month. Hopefully next month she will be able to come and present a first draft of the Sustainability and Climate Action Plan to the Environmental Concerns Committee. And that's basically where we're at. There will be kind of a public comment period, I believe. And that's what Ian had mentioned earlier, that there will be city staff and some ECC members at the farmers market, at least this coming up Saturday. I'm not sure how much longer the farmers market goes, but we'll be there this Saturday to help promote public comment, give citizens a chance to take a look at the draft plan and provide some feedback to the city. Any questions or comments about the sustainability plan?
If I could just add briefly, yeah, so all that sounds great. I also don't know how many more public info, like in-person things there's going to be, but the timeline that Jamie gave us at this presentation to the Kalamazoo Climate Crisis Coalition last week, I think it was last week, said that they're going to do mostly public comment between the end of this month and December, and the goal is to have the city commission voting on it in January. So yeah, getting close to it. I joked that I joined the ECC to get this passed as my like one thing, and then I'm going to miss it by like 2 weeks, but that's good enough for me.
Okay. Is your time up?
That's the end of my first term. Yeah. So I gotta, it's 3 years. Yeah. It's crazy to think about.
But you can do 2 terms.
Oh, okay. Yeah. Let's talk about that some other time. I don't.
Okay. All right. Well, don't leave. Just stick around, man. You get 6 years. You get 2 terms, and then you have to take a break. Okay. Any other comments about sustainability plan?
Yeah, Aaron, Lori, just wondering, what is that going to be at the regular ECC meeting in December, and what is the date on that?
What's the date of our next meeting? Will be the 3rd Wednesday in December, which is the 15th.
Oh, okay. Not Christmas Eve or something like that.
Correct. No, December starts on a Wednesday, so there's like
the earliest it can be. Okay, good.
The 15th. Yep. So I think we are all very much looking forward to seeing that draft. All right, where do we go here? All right. Okay, so that brings us to the deer survey and ad hoc committee report. We've got Pete Kushner here with us from the Oakwood and Winchell Neighborhood Association. Pete, thanks for joining us. And you can go ahead and, where'd you go, Pete? You can go ahead and unmute yourself, and we'd love to hear from you for a few minutes. And then if you've got time for questions, maybe we can kind of do that after you, if you've got a little presentation for us.
Sure. Thanks, Aaron. First, I'd like to thank the Environmental Concerns Committee for taking the time to put me on your agenda to discuss this report. We appreciate having the opportunity to present it to you. I'm just going to assume that everyone's had the opportunity to read it. And I'd like to say a couple things first. Again, my name is Peter Kushner. My brief history, I've lived in the city of Kalamazoo for almost 25 years. I've lived in the Winchell neighborhood for just over 20 years. I've been on the Oakland Drive. Sorry, Aaron, it's not Oakwood. That's a different neighborhood. It's the Oakland Drive Winchell Neighborhood Association. I've been on that board for 12 years. I've served as its president for 10 years. I think, and I would hope that everyone would agree, we have 23 some neighborhoods here in the city. Not everyone has an association, most do. As we refer to ourselves as the ODWNA, our board looks to our main responsibility is to represent and to advocate for our neighborhood's interests and our issues. Right now, we do that through our neighborhood plan. That was a 3-year process with very much public input through our neighborhood, culminating in a neighborhood plan that was sanctioned by Planning Commission and approved by the City Commission. That's our guiding light. That's our template as a neighborhood to move forward on what our neighbors represent, is what their interests and their concerns are. As this specifically relates to deer, I would say over the last 3 or 4 years, more and more residents have come to me personally. They've come to our board and have brought deer issues to our attention. Hurt deer, injured deer, dead deer, the utter lack of carcass removal in our city, copious amounts of scat found in not only people's yards, but in playgrounds and schoolyards as well. This is all in the report. I'm sure you all read it, and I appreciate you giving me the opportunity to kind of review a little bit. Increased aggressive behavior by deer, especially right now during rutting season. Of course, an increase in the spotting of deer, as well as increased plant damage, property damage, and ecosystem damage. Again, after about 3 or 4 years doing my duty as an association president and our duty as a board, I approached senior city staff with this issue and asked what could be done. I was told, you take a look at this. I was told, first off, show that this is more than an Oakland Drive windshield problem, that this is more than an issue, that this is a citywide issue. If you can, outline the issues that your neighbors have, that the city has at large. Define what those issues are and develop a guide to a solution. Based on that conversation, which I took as a positive conversation, with my guidance, and I will say, my solution to this problem and this challenge was to form an ad hoc committee. Now I want to be very clear that this was a committee formed with the impetus of myself and based on our neighborhood feedback. I came to the city, and my only ask, which was granted, was that I would work alongside on a parallel track, our committee that I would form at my discretion or our discretion, how I would do that. I would work along with a parallel track with city staff. And I also asked for a representative or representatives from the Environmental Concerns Committee, because no matter how this came down, I didn't want to spend a year of everybody's time and effort looking into this issue and then bringing it forth to the city with the response of, what are you talking about? I don't know what you mean. We never heard of this. That was met with positivity. I've been working with, as you know, on your committee, Drs. Walter and Malouche, as well as Rebecca Kick, the Director of Community Planning Development, who has been an invaluable resource in helping me and our committee understand the most effective way to put forth our findings, if you will. I've also had numerous contacts with our Deputy City Manager, Laura Lamb. But I want to be clear in case there's some sort of misunderstanding. This is not a city-based committee. We were not tasked by the city to do homework and research, right? We don't represent the city. Our report represents our committee. And I want to take a few minutes to explain how this committee came about. Obviously, As the chair of this committee, I took it upon myself, and for reasons why I've explained, to form a committee as best as I could and knew how to best represent the city at large. Through my years of being a neighborhood association president, I've met most, if I would dare say, all of our other neighborhood association leaders, as well as those areas that have leaders that don't have a formal association. I reached out to each and every one of those associations and groups. And I explained the situation to them. I asked each and every one of them to put forth one representative from your association, preferably a board member, but if not, then somebody that your board trusts to designate and represent, at least for the purposes of this, your neighborhood. We all understand that one person, just like 7 commissioners or the Environmental Concerns Committee, cannot represent each and every opinion of each and every citizen. So I had many people in Winchell that wanted to be on the committee. I had many people that from other neighborhoods calling to be on the committee. I respectfully turned them down and said, this committee is going to be objective and fact-based. And what we're going to do, as I've outlined in the report, is we're going to work to see if there's an issue, see if there's if this is citywide. And if it is, we're going to begin to lay the groundwork and to begin to put forth the data that we have to show that, yes, there is a deer, a problem or a challenge with deer in this community, and it should be addressed for the health and safety of both humans and the deer themselves. Our committee didn't go into this with any preconceived notions. I'll be honest with you. I'm very confused as to why the only focus on this to this point has been about culling and about the survey. The survey was our committee's way to begin, which is the focus of this entire report. This isn't a survey. This isn't a culling meeting. This is to put forth a report to begin, underline and italicize, begin to understand how the community feels about not culling, but about creating a short, a medium, and a long-term plan for managing our deer. I can speak for myself and our committee when we say nothing is or should be off the table. Obviously, other people might feel that way. I won't bore you with the entire research of this report because I know you've all read it. We were as objective, I would say, I don't even want to say as objective as possible. Our committee was very objective. You can see our citations throughout the report that show where we got our data, where we got our information from. We used as a model Michigan DNR, 2 of their deer management plans that they actively use to manage deer in the state of Michigan. We used at least 10 or 15 other deer management plans from New York to Texas and beyond. We looked at all the information. We looked to see how other, and you can see it in our report in the appendix, how other Michigan cities have attempted to and have moved forward with managing their deer. Some do culling, some don't. For the information of this committee, as well as people listening, the state of Michigan, I don't know if they own the deer, but they certainly manage and oversee deer from their permitting and whatnot. That is the #1 way that the state of Michigan manages deer in this state is through hunting. All right, over 385,000 deer were hunted in the state of Michigan last year. And that's all I want to talk about at this point in time about hunting and culling, because to me, and I know our committee, that is a possibility of one tool. If I'm going to build a house, there's a lot of tools that I need. So we're not going to sit here and talk for 45 minutes about the hammer or about the drill or about the saw, because we haven't even come as a city, we have not even got to the point where we have a plan. Right? Myself, and I know I speak for our committee, we are 100%, and you've read it in this report through our recommendations. that this needs to be an open process. This needs to be a transparent process. I mean, I've represented our neighborhood for over 10 years. And something that I know Commissioner Hess understands, and a lot of other people do, and you're going to understand it now, is that I am all for citizen transparency. I am all for citizen feedback. If I have one frustration, maybe like many of you others, of working with the city and working with our neighborhood, is that maybe we don't always know what's going on until it's too late to make a difference. So I want to be clear about that to everyone here. I know you've all read this report. I know you all understand that nowhere in there do we advocate for or do we recommend 100% that deer must be culled. But that is an option in there. So I believe our committee has accomplished our goal. Excuse me. I do believe our committee has accomplished our goals as they've been outlined in the report, which is to provide initial data from our survey that illustrates city residents' concerns and impacts deer and their interest in actions to address the issue of our urban deer. Nowhere in that report, and nowhere will ever say that this survey now proves that we need to cull deer. I know none of you read that in the report, and I'm here to say that that's not our committee's intent. The second goal of our report was to detail ways to further evaluate community issues with white-tailed deer. Our third goal was to recommend next steps, as we were asked to do by city staff, for city government to take that will address conflicts with deer by developing a comprehensive, practical, effective, science-based, humane, and community-supported deer management plan. So for those of you that are also listening, our report details out, it's still in draft form, but it will become public, of course. Our report details out the many ways that other communities and as well as the DNR and other municipalities have made this a community-based process. I will be the first one in line to object to 7 people sitting in a room determining what is going to happen to manage our deer. I will also add that our committee believes wholeheartedly that no action is not an option. Something needs to be done. We need to bring in the DNR. The DNR, in my conversations with them, are helpful. They were very upfront and told us that they're not going to make a decision for municipalities. But once a decision is made by municipality, they are all in. They will help, guide, support, bring resources forth to any municipality that needs and wants to manage their deer. So municipalities in Alpena are going to have a completely different plan than Ross Township, than the city of Kalamazoo, than the city of Detroit. As we've stated in our report, the DNR has very good basic mission statements, goals, guidelines, but each city and municipality has its own unique circumstances, not just geographically, not just how many deer they have, not just where they live, but the people that live in them, right? So I think I've rambled on a little bit about our report, but I want to make sure everybody understands the clarity of this. Like I said, this wasn't about, it never was strictly, let's prove that we need to go shoot X number of deer. Let's manage our deer in the most humane way possible for the health and safety of the deer as well as humans. We all know, we all see deer hobbling around, deer dead in the road, people dying on 131 because they're running into deer. Our committee was not tasked, nor, oh, Ian, you don't think people are dying on 131? Okay. You don't think so? I'll have to pull down that MLive report from 2 weeks ago when somebody ran into a deer and died. Anyway, our goal and our mission as a committee was never to make a final decision, but to bring this to the attention of our city leaders to have a robust and honest and transparent discussion about it and work to solve this issue, right? Because it's not a one-off thing. It needs to be short, medium, and long term with community input along the way. So that's I think the best I can do at this point in time to explain to you how this committee came about, what our goals were, what our committee aimed to do, and what we specifically aimed not to do. So I'm happy to take any questions or feedback or whatever it is. I hope that the ECC can give us some feedback so our committee can finalize the report and bring it forth to the city commission in the next couple of months.
So that's our role, Aaron and Pete, right? Is to review this and respond, not to weigh in one way or the other.
I think that our role is to provide some feedback to the report. I think it's up to the committee, to our committee as a whole, to decide whether we're going to kind of, send a recommendation for the whole report or for a part of the report. So I think that's, we're just hoping to have a nice full discussion here. And then I would imagine that at next month's meeting, we can kind of discuss any kind of recommendation we might want to make. Does that make sense, Joe?
Yes, thanks.
Okay. Pete, thank you very much for your presentation. We appreciate your time and effort, and all time and effort that all the ad hoc committee members have put in to this fairly lengthy and detailed report. Any questions for Pete?
I guess I should open. Sorry, I was what's the opposite of nodding? When your comment about the fatalities. So I'm happy to look up the report you referenced. If you say it's M Live, I have no reason to think you're lying or whatever. But in the report,
that.
But in the report, there's no mention of fatalities, and to my knowledge, in Kalamazoo County, there hasn't been a fatality related to a car crash in the last 7 years, which I believe was the data window in the report. But yeah, I'll make sure to follow up on that data point.
To be clear, the information that we cited was deer vehicle collisions, and those have been growing. I don't want to get bogged down. I'm 99.7% sure that I just read within the last month that there was a fatality on 131 due to a deer collision. But let's not lose the big point of that. Whether somebody dies or not, I think deer vehicle collisions are something that not only humans but deer are trying to avoid.
Certainly, yeah, and I'll make sure to follow up on that. My main first question, though, is kind of related to the formation of the committee. So the first I heard of the committee being formed was that MLive article that I want to say come out in maybe May-ish or so. And I was surprised because, as you allude to, and everybody here knows, yes, we've had people come to the committee in the past talking about a deer nuisance of some sort. Most of the time, they're referring to property damage, and usually we kind of just have to shrug and be like, there's nothing we can do about it. But I think my main question, though, first off, is, would it be fair to say that this was kind of like a private citizen-led committee? So you say, you have your role as president of the association, and then you use those connections that I'm sure you've garnered over 10 years of being president and 12 years of being a part of it to reach out to committee members. But it sounded, when you said that you kind of had final say on who was on that committee. So I guess the main first question is, would it be fair to say that this is a private citizen-led committee that the city kind of just said, hey, if you're willing to do your homework, like you said, go do it. And then that's kind of where it started?
I think the short answer to that is yes. Neighborhood associations in my opinion, a unique and welcome body or bodies in the city of Kalamazoo. We certainly, and I say we because I know all the associations do this. Some have a more formal association with the city. Oakwood, North Side, Edison, East Side, those that are, receiving federal grants, right? They have a more formal association. Parkview Hills, our neighborhood, West Main Hill, etc. Others, this is my word, it could be wrong. I'm going to call it quasi-official. The city recognizes who we are. It certainly makes it, I don't want to say easier, I don't want to say harder. It makes it more efficient for us as neighborhoods to bring forth issues and concerns, whether it's speeding or deer or crime, what have you, to city staff and officials. We're certainly recognized by the city, in my opinion. If you want to pick one example, strictly by virtue of the city, when they completed their Imagine Kalamazoo master plan in 2017, created a path for each and every neighborhood association to create their own neighborhood plan, as well as those neighborhoods that don't have an association to create an association to create a plan. And we took it upon ourselves with some city funding and staff support to hold public meetings. And as I mentioned, right, planning commission, city commission, now our neighborhood plan is baked into the master plan. Not to go off on a tangent, but I will say that the city's master plan, as well as our neighborhood plan and two other neighborhood plans, do call for a deer management program to be looked into. So this isn't something that is coming, I don't think, out of the blue. But to answer your question, Ian, in as many words as possible, when I came to the city and I came to city staff, I was specifically told, we'll work alongside you, but we're not going to attach ourselves to your committee. So the city proactively told us, you go do the homework, you go look this up, you go see if this is more than an Oakland Drive Winchell problem, and then we'll take a look at it. And like I said, I can't thank Rebecca and Laura and other staff members enough for listening, guiding, and working with our committee all along the way to help us complete this report. So it certainly wasn't any type of adversarial relationship. It was more of a parallel track, arm's length kind of an agreement.
Yeah,
we meaning me, being in marketing for 20 years, came up with the idea of doing a survey. And I'm sorry I didn't bring this up earlier. It was at the city's request, or the city's, I should say, initiative, not our committee's, to help us distribute the survey. We did not, as a committee, come to the city and go, here's our survey, you have no say over it, you go distribute it. I appreciate it, I know our committee appreciated that help. Once we had our survey completed, we distributed it to each and every neighborhood association, even those that either chose not to be part of our committee or never responded. We forwarded it to them to get as much feedback as possible. But again, I guess that's how I would answer your question.
Yeah, I appreciate that context. And yeah, to your point about the neighborhood plan, I'm seeing the fruits of that. I'm a new member of the neighborhood, and the bike lanes, highly appreciated. The traffic calming, that's awesome. So you kind of read my mind.
Just to let you know, I've already received 4 complaints about the bike lanes.
Go figure.
So
people hate
my stupid saying is, I can stand on the corner and pass out $100 bills, and somebody's going to go, why don't I get 2 of them? Right?
Right. Sure.
So
absolutely.
I put myself at the point of this committee, and our committee members put themselves at the point of this. And you know what? We understand that not everybody's going to agree with everything we say, and we know a lot of people do. but we're willing to help and move forward because we're looking for a solution to a problem.
Right. And
Right.
that actually kind
But
of
we have to agree. We
so,
might not agree today, but we have to agree that there is an issue. There is a problem with deer. How we solve that, I'm all ears, right? And our report, I believe and hope, begins the discussion, because at the end of the day, so everybody is clear of this, our committee has no power. I mean, I can't go draw on Foundation for Excellence or city staff or funding and go, all right, let's go hire sharpshooters, or let's go cover every tree, right? We're an ad hoc committee of neighborhood leaders showing the city that we have a problem and we want them to do something about it. And I know myself and probably a lot of our committee members would be happy to help along the way.
right. And I don't want to hog everybody's question time. Bobby, I see you're standing by. So the main thing that I'm trying to square in my head is there's a ton of effort in the plan. There's no denying that, or the report. But I feel like I'm hearing two different things. I feel like I'm hearing you say, let's try to find out if there's a problem. And then I'm also hearing you say, there is a problem and let's try to deal with it. And I think that's where a lot of people's concerns with, like, the survey, for example, starts with the formation of the committee. It sounds like it started with the premise that there is a problem and then worked backwards from there.
Well, okay, let me explain that. There is a problem. There is a problem.
Is there?
In the Oakland Drive Winchell Neighborhood Association in our neighborhood with deer. I'm not a scientist. I'm not an
They
ecologist,
exist.
but I can tell you, if common sense radar is working, that if you live between two of the largest undeveloped tracts of land, i.e. Asylum Lake Preserve and Kleinstock Preserve, and deer have been proven to travel back and forth between them, our neighborhood, through sheer geography, is at ground zero for why we have more deer than any other deer.
Okay.
That is a problem. When I brought that to the attention of the city, they said, if you want our city to take action, basically form a committee and look into if there is a problem beyond that, if this is more of a global or citywide issue. So I don't want to be, I'm sorry if I've misled you. I'm not vacillating here. I believe our report, and our committee believes that this report puts forth enough evidence that there is an issue with deer in the city of Kalamazoo beyond the Oakland Drive Winchell neighborhood, and we've outlined the other areas that have that issue. Some have it more than others, but there is a problem. So I don't want you, Al, to walk away thinking that I'm vacillating here. Like, do we have a problem? That was the question, right? That's why I came to the city. Our neighborhood had the problem and has the problem. I believe, and our committee believes, that our report through our research shows that this is more than just our neighborhood problem. There's multiple neighborhoods that have this issue at enough of a level to call for the city to look into how to create a deer management plan. Not if they should create one. As I said, no action is not a recommendation of our committee on the plan, on
Thanks,
creating
Pete.
a plan.
Thanks, Pete. Bobby, did you have a question?
Well, I'm just going to take a hypothetical side and say, I guess I don't know that there is a problem. There are deer, they exist. They may exist in greater numbers than ever before in a given area, but that does not necessarily equal a problem. And I guess my question is, if we're going to look at this scientifically and statistically, is there information on a statewide basis of communities that elect to do nothing as their method of, I don't even want to say managing deer, because I don't know if they need to be managed. They exist, and I don't know if they need to be managed. And I'm willing to accept that they might, but I've not been seeing data that suggests that their existence is a problem. It may be a nuisance, but I don't know if it's a problem. If it is, I think doing nothing should be one potential response to that problem, because sometimes that is the correct thing, is to let nature take care of itself. It may not be the best one. I don't know. So I'd like to see statistics on what communities are doing and the effectiveness of that. And I bet there's a lot of communities that say, I think the best thing to do is nothing. Just for thought.
Did you have a question? What's your question? I'm sorry.
Well, I think the question, Pete, was you've got, you've referenced X number of cities in Michigan and throughout the country that have deer management plans, but are there other municipalities that maybe have looked at deer population and just decided that the best, for their community, the best thing to do was just to leave the deer be? Because if we're only referencing cities that have deer management plans, we're not taking into account any cities that might have looked at it and then decided to just leave it be.
I understand the premise of the thought. I guess the way I would answer that is, okay, Bobby, if you have a hypothetical, I'll have a hypothetical. Let's say that our report cites, which it did, 7 other Michigan cities. I can dig out and dig through all the other deer management plans from other areas, and let's just make up some numbers. Let's say there's 100 cities that look at a deer problem and 27 of them decide to create a plan and 73 of them decide we don't have a problem. That's fine, but we're talking about the city of Kalamazoo. We're not talking about other cities that don't have an issue. That's for each city and municipality to determine and decide if they have an issue and a problem. So if 73 cities determine we don't have enough deer, how do we create a deer copulation program? God bless them, right? But our committee's report, an initial, underlined and italicized initial findings through our feedback from our survey, from our feedback from our neighborhood, from looking into other areas that detail it out, is that this needs a deep dive. Not in 73 cities that decide they don't have a problem, but I believe, and our committee believes, that we've put forth enough information and evidence for the city to grab the reins now, for us to pass that baton and go, time, money, and effort and staff needs to be put forth. And we've outlined how to do that. And I know you've all read this report, so you understand that phase 1 of our recommendation is what? It's education. It's creating a website. It's getting people like me and Ian and Sharon and Aaron to understand that if I don't want deer in my yard, there's methods to move them away. That doesn't necessarily remove the problem for my neighbors, but it helps me and it helps our community. How are we gonna, who's picking up deer carcasses? For everybody that's on Facebook, how many posts do we see now? Please help the poor deer that got hit by a car that's limping around. Who's gonna pick up that carcass? That's a recommendation of our committee. The city needs to do something, right? We need to educate our community to not bait and feed deer, right? It's illegal in the state of Michigan. There should be ways to combat that, right? So phase 2 was to get the city to bring in the experts, to bring in the DNR and do a deeper dive, because guess what my budget was from the city to create this report? It was 0,
Probably the
right?
same as our budget.
Exactly. Thank you, Sharon. So we talked to people at Western. We talked to people at K College. We looked into how do we maybe get drones out there? How do we maybe pitch in and buy trail cameras and start to figure out where the deer are? And then we kind of had an epiphany. It's like, wait a minute, our goals of our committee is to bring this to the attention of the city in a objective, fact-based manner to the point that shows that it's not just 7 people screaming about their hostas in Winchell that feel like we have a problem. And we've outlined every single issue beyond eating hostas that people are having throughout the city. I can't tell you if it's 52% or 27 or 93%. That it's beside the point, but we've shown that there's enough concern, not just for my hostas, but for the deer themselves, that we need to manage this. If you want to go off on the tangent, we as humans have eliminated a lot of their natural habitats. That's beyond the scope of our committee, right? Talk to city planning on how they're going to develop land, right? We've eliminated all their natural predators, right? So our committee's feeling is science-based, look at the facts, be objective, but the option of no action to just say, and again, I mean, personally speaking, I can't speak for my committee. I'm not advocating for killing every deer. I have deer that wander through my yard every single day. They're beautiful. I love them. But when they charge kids, when they attack dogs, when they deposit their waste everywhere, right? When they're in the road and maybe somebody dies or maybe they don't, but they're hurting the deer, that's not good for anyone. And that's where our committee was going with this, right? We've eliminated all the natural ways of controlling deer, and now we're saying we're not going to do anything. So that's what our committee was all about.
So I think I'd like to make a quick comment, and then I think, and I saw Bobby nodding as well. Certainly, I think the most compelling case you're making is for the carcass removal program. That seems like a no-brainer to me, and that sounds like a good starting point. I think the issue that I have is there's basically no mention of scat problems, deer charging and attacking anybody or dogs or people. It's not in the report. The report's not public.
That is incorrect.
The report is not public as well. So at the moment, it's basically your word against mine for the committee. But I think the main issue is, again, number one, we've had issues with the survey, and I do have a question at the end of this, I do promise. Having a concern for something doesn't equate to there being a problem. People can be concerned that a meteor is going to crash into their house, and that doesn't mean we need to do anything about it. Now, that's obviously a comically ridiculous scenario, but I just want to illustrate that the concern. So I don't like to bring up this fact in general, but I have a master's degree in public policy. Survey data is very important to that, to doing this role, I guess I should say. A lot of the questions in the survey that are not public right now have leading questions that say, are you concerned about X issue? When there's no demonstrated data that this issue exists. And that's how you generate false data and false narratives that there's a problem. So the question I have is, who wrote the survey? You said the city helped distribute it, but who wrote the survey? And I want to remind people when you're answering this question that I think you started with the premise that there is a problem and worked backwards from there. So who wrote the survey? And when will everybody be able to see
it? We didn't start with the premise. We started, as I've said, now I'm going to say it for the third time. This committee's genesis was over the course of 3 or 4 years of citizens increasingly coming to me and our board in the Oakland Drive Winchell Neighborhood Association with their concerns and issues about deer, right? It was asked by the city. When I brought it to their attention, my ideal answer would have been, hey, we'll look into that. We'll take care of that. But the answer was, you go look into that. So I created a committee, invited every neighborhood association and group to begin the process of understanding if this is more than an Oakland Drive Winchell issue. Didn't come to them and say, hey, let's go figure out a way to create a problem, right? We have a problem. Let's now go prove we have a problem. If this committee would have come to the conclusion that we don't have I mean, I've got representatives from 14 neighborhoods. They're representing it because their citizens are telling them, to some degree, we have an issue with deer. Okay? So I've been in marketing for 20 years, and I initially put the survey together. I ran it by our committee multiple times. I honestly don't remember if I probably ran it by Rebecca just to take a look at it, right? So you and I are going to have to respectfully disagree that this is some way weighted, unreasonable survey. I can ask, do you think murderers are running around your neighborhood? And every single response was no. Everybody had the opportunity, right, to say this is a huge problem, all the way down to this isn't a problem at all, right? There were multiple places for people to put in their comments if they didn't agree, which many people did, as well as many people said do something. So we're going to have to professionally disagree that this was some misleading survey that was pointing people towards an answer to a question that we already determined it.
I will agree with Ian that it definitely is biased when it's coming from a group that's coming with concerns for looking for action. So
well, I can pull up the survey, Sharon, and there's
looking
many
at it.
questions in there. They're all open-ended. They all
I took
have
the
a scale
survey.
from 0 to 5. But you know what? I'll go back to Ian's point, is that I was asked for the data and I supplied the results of that. And this is a private survey and there's nothing to hide because I don't know what it is that you're looking for out of this survey. I've given you the results of all the answers.
Yes,
I
understand.
We put some of the survey results in there to the percentage of survey respondents who have seen deer pellets. It's 66%. So I'm not sure how using the survey to support some of the missions of what the DNR is trying to do is somehow twisting this around. I'm not sure what it is you're looking for.
It's not a professional survey, which is
Well,
fine.
we're not a professional marketing firm.
I
and we're not
understand,
public policy experts.
but you're denying that there's any possible bias, and I don't think that's a fair assessment based off.
I stand
how the group
corrected.
came together.
It's not a professional survey. We did the best we could. I've got some professional experience in doing surveys, and of course, every survey has bias. Every survey has bias.
Yeah.
How's that? Okay. I don't think personally, and I think our committee would agree, that this survey, and I've told Aaron this in a meeting in August, our survey is about 5% of the research that we did that held us to conclude that there was an issue here in the city beyond the Oakland Drive Winchell neighborhood.
I understand. I
So
still
you
also
can agree or
felt
disagree that if you're asking if
taking
results
it.
are valid, they're as valid as they can be.
Having also taken classes having to do with creating surveys, I felt as I was taking it that there were definitely leading questions showing the biases of who created it. That doesn't make it all the way inaccurate for some people having concerns by any means. But I don't think that it is a incredibly fair assessment across the board, and nor should it be just assumed that.
Well, I
Thanks,
appreciate
Sharon.
your input. And the way I would respond to that is, personally, and I think our committee would agree, if you want to take out all of the survey results out of this report, I believe our committee would still 100% stand behind its recommendations and the conclusions of our report.
Thanks,
With
Pete.
none of the survey data included.
Thanks,
And
Pete.
as a follow-up, Ian, if you look at page 20, we have a paragraph about deer droppings and the possible issues they can cause in humans. It's a report from an entomologist to the University of Florida on page 20 of our report.
Thanks, Pete.
Thank you.
Any other questions? Bobby.
Yeah, I just wanted to ask, it's very unfortunate that Dr. Walter is not with us tonight. She's been instrumental when we have discussions regarding wildlife and their populations and management related items. We have had discussions involving potential problems with deer when it came to EEC spread and that sort of thing. But I guess I'm just Chair Wright, have you received any input from Gail Walter on this issue?
Not specifically, I think what you're looking for. I think it's fair to say that Gail, so Gail participated in the with the ad hoc committee, kind of as an observer for the ECC, and I think it would be fair to say that she kind of stands behind the report and is, I think stands behind the recommendation. I mean, I want to speak for her, but we've been talking about this over a long period of time, and I think that she is. I think she seemed pretty good with the report.
Bobby, I would also add that I did receive an email from Gail today expressing her regret that she couldn't make this meeting, that she would watch it later. I can tell you that every committee member gave us, participated and contributed to this report. I will say that I leaned on Gail as a doctor and a veterinarian to go through a lot of the data as in regards to especially the specifics about Lyme disease, COVID-19 passing along, any health issue, any type of scientific data that we have in there. Gail was invaluable and instrumental in helping. Aaron, you can relate to this, and anybody that's ever been a chair of a committee, you know that, a lot of times you do some of the heavy lifting and then you run it by your committee for their input and their feedback. And that's how this committee, my committee, operated. Gail was valuable and instrumental in looking through this. And I would agree with Aaron that, and of course you'll ask Gail as well. She's very much a part of this report and very much behind this report.
Any other questions for Pete?
I have a couple comments I'd like to make.
Yeah, go ahead, Joe.
Well, Pete, thanks. I feel like you're under the gun here a little bit.
Not really. Good to see you again, Joe. I haven't seen you in a long time.
First comment, I'm struck by the amount of attention, the phone calls are a first, that this issue is drawn compared to other environmental issues that have come before the committee. And I think specifically the graphic packaging issue, where it's been documented people are dying and being harmed by poor air quality. So I'll just throw that out. I mean, deer attract attention and people don't. Sometimes that's difficult for me to reconcile. Second, I live in the Winchell neighborhood. I live right on Kleinstock. I see deer all the time. They have become a very pervasive presence. I don't want to kill them. But man, they've just devastated everything. I have found what works. And so my yard is basically covered with juniper, which is the real prickly stuff that smells like cat piss. Deer don't like it. It stays green all year. So that's how I've dealt with it. Third, I think we all have biases when we come into something. I think it's just naive to think that we don't. I am concerned a little bit about the Lyme disease spread, the potential impact that now we're finding that deer have as carriers of COVID, not as transmitters, but is that I'm just a little concerned with that being something that might be, what's the right word? I don't even know the right word, but it can keep this presence alive. I do feel that this is going to be a growing issue in the fact that there's more and more deer, not that they're causing problems. So trying to be unbiased. And I think it has to do with the fact that just hunting is just declined. Nobody, or hunters have declined. I think MLive did a story that in 25 years, it's dropped 25%. I mean, we just don't hunt like we used to, or Michiganders don't. So I do feel the population is going to continue to grow. And I'm not a scientist. I don't read the articles I've read for science from a science perspective. There's a lot out there. So it seems to be an issue going on all over. And then the last thing I want to say is the purpose of a city council to me is to address the concerns of citizens. Whether it's, we need a speed bump put in our neighborhood or a bike lane. And to me, if people raise it as a concern, I mean, I don't see the harm in having more study on this. I mean, to me, I do feel like one thing I'm worried about, I'll say this because I don't want to be identified as either side. I'm opposed to a cull because I think it's a long-term solution. It's a major investment. Once you start, you can't stop. From what I've read, there's, sterilization, other things don't work, but didn't really want to go that way. So those are just some comments I feel I felt during this whole discussion, for what they're worth.
Thanks, Joe. Any other questions or comments? Going once, going twice.
Oh, I had one quick comment. Joe, just to lift up what you're saying, I totally hear you on terms of people calling about a deer call and the survey data, but they have been consistent the last 4 months. We've had at least 6 people call in each time. And all fairness to Mr. Kushner, that is only a small part of the plan he recommends. And I think that is, like you say, kind of like a big poster child thing. I would love personally for people to be calling in concerned about greenhouse gas emissions, and other people are concerned about recycling and stuff. It's definitely kind of a small, what do you call it, like acute issue that we're dealing with right now. But I just wanted to lift up that it has been consistent, and we haven't had anybody calling in supporting a deer management plan whatsoever. Well, nope, that's not quite true. I think we had one person in August call in, and Aaron,
I've gotten some emails.
It was new information when you said you were getting emails about that. We should see those and have those read onto the record if that's the case. And that concludes it. Thank you, Mr. Kushner. I know this was a challenging discussion, but thank you for coming.
Not for me. I appreciate your time. I appreciate you guys listening. You're welcome as a committee to send us your feedback, to consider incorporating into our report to the City Commission. I will say to your last comment, Ian, just as many of you might feel that a survey that we put forth with 1,600 responses was biased, I would also ask you to consider that 6 phone calls and 17 emails all against a cull might be biased as well. Maybe the people that are strongly opposed to it would be more predisposed to respond. And my last point is, nowhere in here do we strictly advocate for a call. We're saying if these 7 things all line up and all the experts agree that should be considered. And if I'm mistaken, please send me the portion of our report where we specifically call for a deer calling, and I'll review that.
I think that's a great observation. We do have to take into account the fact that it's 6 people versus the number of respondents, but Kalamazoo has 42,000 registered voters. I just looked it up yesterday, and like 10% of people voted in the last election. So survey data, polls, it's all challenging regardless of the nature of it. But yeah, thank you again for your time. And I really want to lift up too, if nothing else, the carcass removal program sounds like a no-brainer. That would be a thing that I could totally get behind without further debate.
Great.
Well,
right, thanks everybody for your time. I appreciate it. And I'm happy to help you with any other questions you have.
Thanks, Pete. I just wanted to put my 2 cents in here at the end. I appreciate the thoroughness of the report. I'm especially drawn to the issue of harm. So you've got the kind of 3 categories of harm listed by carrying capacity. So biological carrying capacity, ecological carrying capacity, and then more like the social carrying capacity, like how willing is the community to put up with whatever issues might come with a possibly increasing deer population. So if the city were to look at spending time and money and staffing on looking at those 3 issues, we have heard about the deer issue. I'm in my 5th year now, I think, on the ECC. We've heard about it at least once a year. And the discussion on the ECC has always been around the idea of harm to the deer population, or harm to the human population, or harm to the general ecological health of where the deer's range. And up until now, we really haven't seen any data that shows any of that harm. But personally, there certainly is a concern in the community about the deer population. And I think that we'll probably have a discussion next month at ECC about whether, what kind of recommendation we might send the city commission. But I would, I'm interested to see what a more kind of professional population survey can show if there is an issue with the biological carrying capacity, how healthy the deer herd is, and then the ecological carrying capacity, if there's some way. So we count, get some kind of deer count, count heads of deer. But then I'd also like to see some way to look at what kind of overall impact they might have on public ecology.
I cannot agree with you more. I mean, that is the purpose of our report.
Right.
To open the eyes of our city leaders, our city staff, our citizens advisories committees. I've heard a few people say you haven't seen any data. With all due respect, I don't know where you're looking for data, or if you're even looking for data at all. And that was, I think, one thing our committee tried to do is say, here's some semi-scientific data, the best that we could find. Some of it's very scientific. Some of it's K College and Kalamazoo Christian Studies. It doesn't mean that it's 100% correct, but it doesn't mean that it's 100% made up either, right?
Yeah.
I know myself and our committee welcomes professional experts to come in and look at this issue and engage it out. And Ian, no disrespect intended, but I'd rather manage deer than scrape them up off the road, to be honest with you. That doesn't seem too humane to them either. But it's a fact of urban life. But if we could reduce that number and find a better way, I'd be all for that as well. And I'm not advocating for what that is, right? Except for what's in our report.
Okay. All right. Well, Pete, thanks for your time tonight. Oh, Ian, did you have one more?
Yeah, sorry. We were almost there.
Here.
So you refer to the data and where we're looking. I just want to lift up one point and then ask a final question. The Kalamazoo Christian High School 2017-2020 reports and the Kalamazoo College report were not included in the data that we saw. The only things that from that were points that support your conclusion that there needs to be a plan, but we didn't see the actual report. But leads me to the final question. When will this draft report be made public alongside the reports you reference, alongside the survey data? And aside from everything we've talked about, I mean, the main reason I asked too is we have to jump through a lot of hoops for like sustainability plan, for example. There's this huge built out community input session. So I'm just wondering like when you envision that to be happening and when we'll see all of the pieces together rather than just the draft report that we saw. Thank you.
1 second, Pete. The K College, I think there's the Kalamazoo Christian deer survey And the K College Deer Survey information, I'm pretty sure that's in the ECC shared drive. And they have came and presented the Kalamazoo Christian. I think that might have been before you were on the committee. Kalamazoo Christian came and presented, was that Les Tung, I think, presented that information. So we do have some of those student-led deer population surveys. But again, that data to me, Pete, that we looked at, to me that didn't demonstrate a level of harm. So we have looked at some data. For myself and for our committee, it didn't rise to the level of harm to the deer population or harm to the human population. But if we can get a more in-depth professional assessment of the deer population and any ecological impact, I think that will give us a better, a better starting point of, deciding what we might do or not do.
Sure. So I'll briefly respond. Our report has many citations, basically every paragraph. I mean, I would almost, except for what was pointed out in red as our notes, virtually everything is almost a cut and paste out of those cited materials. I'm happy to provide any and all of the reports that are cited in this report to you, from the MDNR's plans to New York plans to web links to where we received and produced this type of data. I do have a copy. I believe they made it public. To Aaron's point, I've also got copies of the Kalamazoo College and Kalamazoo Christian reports. They've put those out in PowerPoints. I'm happy to provide that to your committee as well. As far as this being a draft, I would thank and I appreciate your committee not sharing it. Draft is obviously a draft. As I mentioned earlier, maybe it was to you, Ian, I'm happy and willing to go along with how the city does this. When something comes forth to the city, it obviously becomes a public document, right? I mean, it's going to be part of their package. So the intent is never to hide what we're doing. I would have been happy to include the hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of data packages behind this. And if you want them, I'll just ask me for them. So when the report's public, at this point in time, I guess the best answer I can give you without sounding coy is when the city says it should be public, it should be public. The reason it's still, I think, technically in a draft form is our committee was ready, willing, and able, and still is, to listen to the ECC and see what your feedback is and understand if there's something that we can continue to add to this report before we present to the city commission, because this is a very dynamic issue. And once it's presented to the city commission, it's going to have an expiration date, right? There's still going to be new information. Somebody brought up COVID-19. I've already received in my email 3 more articles about COVID-19 and deer. So things are constantly changing. Very quickly, Aaron, you had mentioned a level of harm. Let me flip the table, if I will, a little bit. I'd love to know what the ECC's objective criteria is for a level of harm. You've mentioned a few times that you, maybe personally or as a committee, don't feel that some of the data we provided reaches a level of harm. To me, that sounds subjective. That doesn't sound objective. I don't know what you're basing that on, but it would be great for our committee to understand that as we move forward. I understand what level of harm is. I don't know what your standards are and how you measure those. Beyond, I don't understand.
Okay. Yeah, thanks, Pete. And I don't have, we don't have, there's not like a document or like a bullet point of lists of what that level of harm is. I think that's the open question is the biological carrying capacity, the ecological carrying capacity, is it reaching that level of harm? I think that's a decision that we kind of need to make together based on the data that we get back from any possible future deer survey or ecological impact study. Well,
I agree 100%. I thought I misheard you to say you haven't seen anything in this report that reaches your level of harm. So I was just curious what that level was. and
Well,
how
the
you measured
recommendation of your report is to get some more a population survey and maybe some ecological impact study, get it done, and then we take a look at that data. I guess I didn't really see any data in your report. The report is requesting for us to look for more data. So we haven't seen the data yet that's gonna instruct us one way or another.
Okay, I guess I misunderstood. You're right. Our report recommends that the city, as we've discussed, time, money, effort to go
Right.
find more data, real data, right? Not a band of neighborhood association people to go, let's do the job right and let's find
Right.
out.
And like you had mentioned to me previously, maybe that data comes back and shows that the biological carrying capacity isn't, there. We might have another few years before that level gets met. Maybe that ecological carrying capacity, maybe there isn't impending doom to whatever plant species or insect species. And that's what I'm saying. We don't know until we get some more of that data. So,
Okay.
But we've had a nice hour-long discussion here tonight, Pete. I really appreciate your time and the
thanks.
committee's effort. I think we have exhausted our questions and comments. You are welcome to hang out for the rest of our meeting, but I think we're going to go ahead and move on to our next agenda item.
I'll probably cut out, but once again, I thank you for your time. I appreciate your patience. I hope and look forward to working with this group as we move forward with this.
All right. Thanks, Pete.
Thank you.
All right. I'm going to go ahead and share my screen again. All right. The next meeting, next agenda item is the upcoming Michigan Department of Health and Human Services Air Quality Report. I don't really have anything on that. There have been a couple of news items lately related to this. Everybody's still just kind of waiting with bated breath for this report to come out, hopefully in January. At the meeting, the Eagle had kind of an update meeting in October where they shared data from the EPA. The basic outcome of that meeting was that there is no short-term negative health effects based on air quality in and around graphic packaging and wastewater treatment plant. But they're still reviewing that long-term health data. New business. Any questions or comments about that upcoming report? And there's not really much to say until we actually see the report. New business, Nicole, I think was going to try to address sustainable food production, but she was not able to make the meeting. So we will bump that to next month. And it is 6 o'clock, so it's about time for us. So we typically try to wrap up, but let's kind of quickly move through our subcommittee reports. Bobby, anything new with the NFP review board?
Nope, but we are currently reviewing a redevelopment of property next to the Kalamazoo Country Club. And so that's an ongoing process right now. Of course, the main thing is that since the passing of the phase 2, any properties that find themselves within the expanded NFP overlay that are considering proposed or planned development, if that NFP overlay now applies to your property, you will now be subject to that review process. So that's what's going on NFP.
Where's that property again, you said?
It is the former Lakeside home adjacent to the Kalamazoo Country Club. They're looking at some redevelopment of that property.
That's a big parcel, huh?
It's a big tract of land, but yep.
Okay. Bobby and I have not had a chance to meet over the last month. I think we're going to get together for the Air and Water Quality Subcommittee next month. Gail was not able to make the meeting tonight. Gail did share with me an article about Lyme disease vectors through deer ticks that I will share with the committee to provide us more background on that issue. Waste management, litter, and recycling. So we have Rick Welch here. Rick, I really appreciate your patience tonight, sitting through our first kind of long discussion. Sharon and Ian and I were all in attendance at the last styrofoam recycling event at the farmers market.
Yep. Thank you.
Rick, what do you have for us tonight?
Well, I have 3 questions. I'm a volunteer on that program, and it's good to see Sharon, and sorry I missed it because I was at a wedding, but I have 3 questions for you. One is kind of open-ended. How do you guys feel about that program? Number 2 would be if it gets extended, where are you going to put it? Is it going to stay at the ballpark or move to the farmers market? And if it moves, I would have some suggestions as to how to place it. And then number 3 is I'm looking for some advice as to, in that the trailer is a very inexpensive storage facility. It has a finite capacity, and we filled it up the last time, and I'm nervous about what to do if we get more styrofoam than the trailer can handle. And when we kicked this program off, I thought the assistant city manager had said in a meeting that, oh, the park over there has plenty of extra storage. And Patrick McVeary said, no, we don't. So I'm caught in a quandary here and looking for solutions to that. So those are my 3 questions, and it's good to see. Thank you all for helping out in the program. I'm assuming that we're going to keep moving it forward, but I'll look for answers from you guys.
Sharon?
I could answer a couple things, I guess. I don't know how much we want to talk about this right now, but yeah, we did fill it up all the way. We were considering closing early because of that last time, but we ended up going right to the end and filling it up right at the end. So that worked out pretty perfectly. It'll be winter for the next one, so I'm not sure if we can expect the same volume in January or not. I highly suggest that we continue it. I think we have proven in the pilot program that it is successful, and I hope that we see it as a part of the sustainability plan that's going to be discussed next month. So I don't see any reason why not to keep continuing it. What it looks like, I don't know. I would also suggest that we move it to where the farmers market is going, because I think that was a great way to not have everyone just be driving to drop off styrofoam, and also hopefully going to the farmers market. I thought that worked out really pretty well, that it was together, and hopefully the new location has more room, but that's all speculation at this point since we don't have authority exactly.
Thank you, Sharon. Can I say something?
Yeah, go ahead.
If it does move to the farmers market, I would suggest that they place it in a way where another truck can back right up to it, because it's a very efficient way to unload it or transfer the goods. Because we open both doors to both trailers, back the trailer up, and then you just walk them from one trailer to another. It's very effective. So
Sharon, have you talked to city staff about what the program might look like for next year?
They definitely didn't want to give any answers, but they have admitted that it is looking like it has been a very successful pilot program. And I think they plan to try to see what to do about continuing it. I don't know where that needs to come from exactly, or how we can make sure that that happens. But there is talks of hopefully figuring out how to continue it. I also could talk to them if that's needed.
Okay.
And then I'd like to add one more concern. Some of the other volunteers have said, are you going to do a drop off right after Christmas? And it sounds like a good idea because people have a lot of styrofoam sitting in their garage or homes or whatever, basements, that could be placed into the trailer, but we don't really have a printed schedule for that at this point in time. Would it be possible to add another date is a question.
I don't feel like this is the right exact space to discuss that. I think that's something that needs to happen with the city. I don't know. I haven't been told. I think it'd be great to do it more often, like monthly, but if that's feasible, but it might be able to produce more or consistently. And if we're always lining it up with like the farmer's market, like I said, that seems like it could go relatively smooth. But we can't, I don't know. I don't have any authority, so.
Okay. Great. Thank you, Sharon.
Thanks, Rick. Well, Sharon, maybe
Okay.
you and I can connect about getting an email together with a kind of list of questions for city staff and kind of try to prod the discussion along. Okay.
Thanks for supporting the program, though. Thank you.
Yeah, it's been a great success. So thank you. Yeah, thank you, and all the folks from Hope for Creation and Sharon and city staff for putting the whole thing together.
Oh, one little additional item that you might be interested in is that we now have Friendship Village collecting on their own with a lady that's a member of Hope for Creation. So, and I'm working with them. So,
all right, that's great.
Great.
All right, Planning Commission, Ian, anything interesting there?
Sorry, I missed it, so nothing to report.
Okay. Gail said the tree committee had not met. She sent me an email, so there's nothing to update there. Sharon, anything from Silent Lake policy?
I was not able to make it actually this week. I don't know if Lori has anything to add. I know they did voting for positions. I'm not sure exactly what else was discussed.
The water project, which we've all been very excited about, which was, and money had been appropriated for it. However, when the plan was put out for bid, one bid was received, and it was almost twice as much as was originally projected. So the council is going back to the drawing board and looking into the details of that bid. Why did it come out so much more than Kaiser Associates thought it would be? We did vote in a new slate of officers, and Sharon's being very modest because she was voted in as vice chair of the group. Pete Strastis of Western is the chair, and Kay Chase is the secretary. And some activity has taken place for the last month or so at the spillway because the beavers have been very, very busy there, blocking up the various cages that exist. And that caused the lake to rise to an unprecedented height. So the unblocking has resulted in the lake getting settled back down to a normal level. Interesting development as the guys were working out there with all the work of the beaver, which of course they disassemble them, and the beavers assemble immediately, like within 12 hours. There is an accumulation of some very, and I'll use the unscientific word, nasty silt at that end of the lake, which is a large part of what is the problem, because it's blocking up the culvert that runs between Big Asylum Lake and the creek, which goes into Little Asylum Lake. And so some investigations and study are underway with the water guys that are on the council who know about some of these things. The suspicion is that it is the fine silt that did not settle at the bottom of the lake following the spill that happened from BTR2 a year ago last June. So the coarser stuff settled down as the flow of water, which goes from west to east in Big Asylum Lake, it reached the bottom of the lake. But this stuff, because it's so fine, floated all the way to the end of the lake. And it is definitely something that is being checked out, possibly sampled, possibly tested, and hopefully eventually removed, because it's a major problem with the blockage of the culvert pipe. So that's the exciting news from Lake Wobegon. If you have ever underestimated beavers, don't. They are amazing engineers, and the busy as a beaver, old-fashioned saying, was very well founded.
All right, thanks, Lori. What's next? Parks and Rec. Rob, anything to report from Parks and Rec?
Yes, there just a couple things for the dog lovers. The Fairmont Dog Park has gone under review for a lot of their rules and accessibility options and everything. They've just tried to condense it and make it more user-friendly towards the end of the year. There was a grill that was causing some concern by its proximity, where dogs were trying to get scraps and everything. So they're talking about relocating it. For those with kids, they're going to be constructing a nature-based area outside of Bronson that is, primarily, there's a whole organization that kind of leans into the using natural products versus steel and rubber and stuff like that. So that's going to be a big addition coming up to Bronson. And the last one, they're just planning for New Year's activities and upcoming 5Ks and stuff that'll be using park space.
Okay, cool. Thanks, Rob. Wellhead Protection Program Committee. I think Jean Talanda is slated to pay us a visit in December. But Melissa, if you are still on with us, we are getting filled up for December. So you and I will have to have some email communication over the next month, because we do have Jamie McCarthy coming to talk with us about the sustainability plan. I hope that will be kind of an extended discussion. So I'm not exactly sure if we'll have time. We were hoping to have Dr. Kornheiser from Kalamazoo River Watershed Council come and speak to the committee too. I don't know if we can get two presentations in during one meeting next month. So I think we might have to ask Dr. Kornheiser to bump his presentation again out to January. So, and Jean's usually doesn't take that long. It's usually kind of a couple-minute update. That brings us to Odor Task Force. Odor Task Force was actually supposed to meet today. That meeting ended up getting bumped, so that'll be beginning of December, I think, the next meeting to review that data. I have taken the opportunity to look at at some of the data that is posted, and I've shared that website with you guys before. The city they've got quarterly reports from the Odor Task Force. And now they've got some great graphs that show over time hydrogen sulfide rates in parts per billion that data that's been collected by the city's odor monitors. We haven't seen those same type of graphs from graphic packaging yet. although they have quite a few more monitors than the water reclamation plant does. So I plan to bring that up at the next odor task force meeting. I think it would be very good for the community to see those hydrogen sulfide levels over time and easily understandable graphs, which the city has has put. You kind of have to dig through it on the city's website, but it's there, and it goes back to 2019. So the graphs, they give a pretty good idea of what, where the hydrogen sulfide emissions are and what level they're at.
Similar to what Lori's just said for Sharon, I just want to lift up, since I don't think most people are copied on those emails. Aaron has been doing a tremendous amount of work on the odor task force and air quality stuff, and he's been talking to a bunch of people. So I just want to say thank you, Aaron. Good job. We appreciate it.
Yeah. I just want to get the problem solved. And we're really looking forward to seeing that report from Michigan Department of Health and Human Services, because of course we are all very concerned with the idea that there might be a long-term health effect based on air quality in and around graphic packaging and the wastewater treatment facility. Any other questions or comments for the good of the order? All right, well, hearing none, we will see you all next month, hopefully for a good discussion about the sustainability plan. And I would imagine too that we can have a discussion next week about a possible recommendation to the City Commission about the deer report that we discussed tonight. So let's be ready. I might work on a recommendation if somebody else wants to send some ideas for what kind of recommendation. I'm sure everybody's got we got some differing opinions, I think, on ECC. So I would be delighted to hear from everybody so we can kind of get a little draft of something together for next month, so that we can have had a chance to maybe look at it a little bit ahead of time, and then kind of wordsmith it or hammer it out, whatever we're going to go, whichever way the meeting goes next month.
Would you mind sending like a Google Doc or something like that, where we can all like either drop ideas or make amendments or things like that?
Yeah, I can do that.
That'd be fairly easy for us all to then manage.
Yeah, no problem. So look for some emails. Oh, and then the last housekeeping piece, we will meet again remotely in December. But then my understanding is that the city's going to send out some kind of email or whatever to explain the new rules. I think we have to meet in person starting in January, at least as of now. I still haven't gotten an answer to the question about if we all have to meet in person, or if some of us can Zoom in, and if that will still count as having a quorum. But Rob, please feel free, if you come in person, bring the whole family, bring everybody with. That would be great.
We've got 2 junior environmentalists here that are chomping down dinner, but wanted to be a part of this.
Same to you, Ian. You can bring your friends too.
Outstanding. Yep. Yes, your stealth friend in the background. We totally didn't see that. So, all right. It's nice to see everybody, and we will see you again next month.
Aaron?
Yes, sir.
I do have a couple messages that came through.
I apologize. We do have a couple more citizen comments. We typically kind of get those out of the way at the beginning, but we'll take a couple more here at the end, just because we've had so much interest. Go ahead, Don.
Sure. There's about 3 of them. All right, one moment while I get it queued up for you.
Yes, my name is April Potgazer. I live in Kalamazoo County. I'm not in the city, but I do follow the city's government as well as other committees on Facebook. And I was just listening to the committee environmental committee talk about deer concerns. I didn't watch the whole thing. I'm catching the tail end of the meeting. But I think it's really sad that discussion is even being made. I think really what you need to do is educate people on how to exist with deer, because deer are a beautiful thing. And instead of wanting to kill them, poison them, you need to really, even though it's the city and not the country, I grew up partially in the city and partially in the country, and my grandparents lived in the city of Portage, and they had deer in their neighborhood, and they didn't call to the city of Portage wanting to poison them and manage them. I think really you need to get people educated on the whole thing with deer more, and wanting to not wanting to harm them. I think that is really appalling and sad. So, if people don't like deer, go live somewhere where they wouldn't be. So instead of wanting to destroy them, this is Michigan. We're known for deer here. So I really think there needs to be better education with people within the city. And hopefully I don't hear of a discussion with a meeting there of this topic again, because I think it's really sad. Have a great Thanksgiving. Take care. Bye.
Yes. Hi, my name is Tina McClinton. I live on Lake Street. I live in Kalamazoo, born and raised here. I was calling about the deer. I say save the deer. There's no reason to kill deer because they're eating people's flowers. Then you plant flowers that the deer won't eat. I really think because the city has taken away so many of their land and their green spaces to live, that they have nowhere else to live, so they have to come in town. So I say, please save the deer and don't kill the deer. It's a beautiful piece of nature that everybody loves and everybody enjoys. You just need to plant flowers that the deer won't eat, or plant something that they like so they can eat that. Please, do not kill the deer. Save green spaces so they have a home too. Thank you very much. Have a good day.
Hi, my name's Richard Stewart. I am a resident of the city in the Southtown neighborhood. It appears the city is trying to change an ordinance that will allow nonprofits to use property within the city for emergency homeless housing, so they could go anywhere if the ordinance is approved. My question to the Environmental Concerns Committee is if there are going to be any procedures in place where these encampments go to protect from disease, specifically parvo for the animals was spread in the last Ampersea site, and if the city is intentionally going to put this first emergency homeless site at the former Michigan DHS office complex on Stockbridge, that is the Southtown neighborhoods area where we typically walk dogs. So environmental concern could be disease also. So I wanted to find out what your intent, how you're going to curb disease at these encampments, wherever they may be, because that's a very contagious and deadly disease for animals. Thank you.
Okay, that is a conclusion of public comments for tonight.
It's good to know that we have normal followers. The second person's the lady that discusses the water in Southtown, well, occasionally. I remember that voice and that name.
Yeah, yes. I think she's a fan of the ECC. Yes, no, we appreciate each and every community member calling in to express their concerns, whether it's the deer or health or environmental concerns for any possible site for folks who don't have a place to stay. I think that does it. And unless there's any other questions or comments, I will see you all in December.